I raised two little snakes, one green and one white. At night when I slept, I kept feeling two cold things wrapping around my whole body. Right by my ear, I could even hear voices talking. It's my turn tonight. As soon as that was said, a faint tingling ran through me and I instantly fell into a shattered dream. It felt like I was drowning and desperately trying to grab onto something to save me. But in the end, what I caught in the dream was a pair of icy cold feet. Little dummy, still not behaving? So greedy you want both of us? A few days earlier, I was putting two lab mice I brought back from the lab into the glass tank. Little green, little white, dinner time. Inside the tank, one green and one white, two arm-thick little snakes were hanging off a branch, lazily basking under the heat lamp. They weren't interested in the mice at all. They just glanced over once and shut their eyes again. In the corner was the mouse from last time, except it wasn't breathing anymore. I checked the dead mice before and found their gallbladders had burst, which meant they were literally scared to death. At first, I worried these two snakes would starve themselves if they kept refusing to eat. But after a while, I saw they were totally fine and even growing. Even so, I still brought them two mice every week just in case they got hungry. I took better care of them than I did myself. Whether I could graduate or not pretty much depended on them. I checked the time. It was almost 6. Crap, I'm gonna be late. I rushed to wash my hands, grabbed my backpack. My roommate Wei Dong teased me. Why the rush? Got a date with that hot senior? My face went red. Quit it. She's just thanking me for fixing her laptop. Fine, I'll stop. Just remember to treat me when you two get married. We were joking around and didn't notice that at that moment, the two little snakes in the tank had opened their eyes and were staring at me coldly. By the time I got back to the dorm, it was already 11 p.m. Wei Dong was out cold. I washed up quietly, and when I came back, the snakes in the tank were following me with their eyes. That cold gaze sent a shiver down my spine. Cold-blooded really did fit them. Felt like all this time feeding them hadn't built up any affection at all. But when I lay down, I couldn't fall asleep. I'd gone to a cafe with my senior earlier, and I usually never drink coffee. So once I do, I'm wide awake. Half asleep, I felt someone pull open the curtain around my bunk. I tried to move but couldn't. Something slid under my blanket, slick and smooth. This guy smells like another woman. Gross. You're making things up. I showered. I don't smell like anything. My head was fuzzy, and I subconsciously followed their words. But my eyes just wouldn't open. Seems like we've been too nice to him, never letting him know what he really is. A voice on my right chimed in, just as cold, but lower than the one on my left. Looks like we need to punish our little dummy today. When she said punish, the voice on my left even sounded amused, like this was her favorite thing. I instinctively felt afraid. This was honestly the scariest dream I'd had in years. Through the haze, the two girlish voices seemed to argue over something, then one of them gave in. Right after that, a faint pain hit me. That feeling of my energy being drained was way too real, making the whole dream even more surreal. I was like someone drowning, bobbing up and down in the water. Even gasping for air, I still couldn't breathe. One of the girls giggled sweetly, and in that instant, it was like something clicked in my memory. This wasn't the first time I'd had this dream. I reached my hand out. Little dummy, not behaving again. So greedy, huh? Her teasing, sugary tone made my skin crawl. Suddenly, music started playing. The crushing pressure and drowning feeling vanished in a second. I shot up in bed and realized it was already morning. Sunlight filtered through the curtain, chasing away the fear in my chest. The music was Wei Dong's alarm, and for the first time ever, I thought an alarm sounded beautiful. He had literally saved my life. That dream felt way too real, like it had actually happened. I glanced down. My bed was a mess with a wet patch on the sheet, probably from me struggling in my sleep. Just then, Wei Dong pulled open his curtain, rubbed his eyes, and immediately spotted the two snakes in the tank. They were sitting there with their eyes closed, like they were meditating. Dai Mao, your snakes are weird. They don't even like mice. The two mice were huddled in the corner, their red little eyes full of fear. Yeah, it's really weird. My name is Dai Mao. I'm a biology grad student in my second year. I found these two snakes in the mountains during a recent field survey. They don't match any species I know. Back then, I was with my dominatrix-like advisor and a cute junior 1 year below me. Dai Mao, you're still stressing over your thesis topic, right? My junior was sweet and adorable, with dimples when she smiled. At some point, she leaned close to me. When I turned my head, I almost kissed her cheek. I freaked out and quickly stepped back to calm down. But she didn't notice a thing, just smiled at me with her eyes curved. It honestly made my heart skip a beat. I glanced at my advisor. Her face, calm and elegant, tilted just a little in approval. Hey, if you've discovered a new species, that could be the best research of your career. Your name could end up in textbooks, right next to these two little snakes. Who doesn't want to accomplish something big in research? But my top priority was still graduating, so I brought them back and kept them in my dorm. Luckily, Wei Dong is also a biology grad student, just with a different advisor, so he totally gets where I'm coming from. He keeps a few foxes himself, but because of what they are, he can only keep them in the lab. Still, I was a little worried. I'd had these snakes for about 6 months, and they were almost always in a hibernation-like state, making it nearly impossible to observe anything useful. I've only got a year left, and I'll need enough data to analyze by then. Why not just talk to your advisor? Professor Ru Yan is the best advisor in our school. She became a full professor at a young age. Honestly, she could be a PhD supervisor already, and she really liked you in the interview. Didn't she? I nodded, but felt a bit awkward. Lu Ruyan was eccentric, cold, and distant. She didn't like me as a person. She liked my potential results. Unless I had to. I tried not to bother her at all. But Wei Dong had a point. After tidying up, I got ready to head to the lab to find her. Right before I left, I checked the mirror and noticed 2 tiny red marks on my neck. They were in a perfect spot, just hidden under my collar. When I pulled the collar aside on the other side, there were two more, just a bit darker. I practically live in the lab, so I'd never noticed them before. If my shirt hadn't been wrinkled today, I probably still wouldn't have. They didn't hurt, and I had no idea how I'd gotten them. Then out of nowhere, last night's dream hit me. I whipped my head around and saw the two snakes in the tank, wide awake and staring at me without a sound. Aside from the faint ache on my neck, a ridiculous thought pushed its way into my mind, like it was about to break through. The two snakes stared at me intensely, and I suddenly felt like their mouths curled into something like a human smile, only it looked ice cold. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my junior. "Senior, Professor wants to see you. She's in Lab 2. Lab 2 is her private lab. No one else ever goes in there. When I looked back at the tank, the two snakes were just lying there with their eyes closed, soaking up the heat. Maybe I was just seeing things. I laughed at myself. They're just snakes, no hands, no feet. How could they get out of a sealed glass tank? Weidong was ready too. He was heading to the lab to check on his foxes. The biology building sits in a quiet corner of campus, pretty out of the way. Weidong's lab is on the left as soon as you walk in.